Thanks, Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is 3 p.m. and I will call to order the Board of Directors regular meeting for Monday, June 16th, 2025. May I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Present.
Director Duff,
Present.
Director Martin,
Present.
Vice President Griffith,
Present.
President Sewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Seeing that all 5 directors are here, we will skip item 3. If everyone would please rise for item 4, the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Martin, would you like to lead us?
Sure. Place your hand over your heart and join me in saluting our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 5, Rules of Procedure. Counselor?
Yes, according to the rules of procedure adopted by the Board of Directors, all notice meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The president of the board presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for the maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. All questions and remarks should be addressed to the president as the presiding officer. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting.
Thank you. Item 6, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board today?
President Sewell, we do not.
And we might in person.
I'm Carl Thompson, and I recently lived country.
And sir, sorry to interrupt you. If you'd come up to the podium, it will record and capture your audio as well. Thank you.
Carl Thompson, and I recently live out here, and there is a property on 8th Street and Ocatella right beside the Chinese restaurant. Right there, that corner property is mine. I own it almost 7 years now. And I would love to have some water on it, that whenever time I go there, I can set up a restroom where I can use it without the public drive by and see me if I'm using the bush side for emergency. I would like the water, not just for myself alone, but for whosoever come there to see me. And I have this special seeds. It named Callaloo seeds. We usually in Jamaica, this small island, they use it to give the tourists them like breakfast in the morning. So they call it Callaloo. It's a very easy vegetable to cook, 15 minutes, super ready. I don't see it out here, but if I surely have the water and that premises, I could make such vegetable available for this community. And I'm also have my relatives in England, and the future for that premises, I would love in the future, I build an all-inclusive hotel and that property, because these English guests that I have in my family background, they like to travel. And all-inclusive hotel is like where they stay all the time, they travel. And out here, for the first time I came out here and see out here, it reminded me of Jamaica. out here is just beautiful, especially desert at spring. There's no place out here like desert. How the other places that they're trying to impress me with, but as far as I see, over here is the roof of the desert. I just really love this place. So I would love the energy of life can make me have some water to play with while these heat going on, and I will be able to grow the callaloo and, make myself become healthy again. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff will get your information and they can contact you about establishing service and go over the different options you have with your property.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other members of the public wishing to address the board today?
Not online, President Sewell.
Okay. And with that, we'll move on to item 7, our human resources report. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. I'll ask our Human Resources Manager to take this item. Brianna?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good afternoon, President Sewell, members of the board. Today, we have a very short and sweet human resources report. We only have one promotion to celebrate. Next slide, please. Thank you. It is with great pleasure that we announce the promotion of Cynthia Acosta from Administrative Assistant 1 to Administrative Assistant 2. Cynthia joined the district in the fall of 2022 as a temporary employee, providing support to both the engineering and human resources departments. Due to her strong performance and adaptability, she quickly transitioned into a regular status position. Since that time, Cynthia has demonstrated exceptional dedication and versatility, contributing meaningfully across several departments, including engineering, human resources, customer service, and finance. Most recently, she has returned to engineering, where she continues to play a key role in supporting the team's ongoing efforts. At this time, I would like to invite Engineering Manager Eric Weck to share a few remarks regarding Cynthia.
Thank you, Oriana. Good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. When we brought Cynthia back in engineering, back in 2022 to engineering to help out, there was a staff vacancy, a temporary staff vacancy there. So we brought her in and we immediately noticed that Cynthia was quick to pick up complicated tasks and processes. And she also fit in to the engineering staff, which can be difficult because we're a bunch of nerds. But other district staff noticed that as well. So much so that, as Oriana alluded to, that other departments, hearing how much Cynthia brought to the district through her attention to detail and her take charge attitude and her discretion as well. Cynthia also worked for the Human Resources Department, Customer Service, Finance Department, as well as the Operations Department. So she has worn many hats. As a testimony to her character, she even offered to open up her home during the Tropical Storm Hillary event so that district staff could stay there during the event, and it was local and they would have a place to sleep and have some food. It goes without saying that everyone knows Cynthia to be hardworking and conscientious. And I know it pains Oriana for her to hear me say this, but we're very glad that she's back in engineering. And this promotion is very well deserved. With that, I'll let Cynthia say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Hello, President Sewell, members of the board and MSWD staff. I want to take a moment to convey my genuine appreciation for the chance to advance to the position of Administrative Assistant 2 in the engineering department. Thank you for having the confidence in me, and I am eager to continue working with such a dedicated group of people. I look forward to continuing to grow in the capacity and contributing to the success of the team and organization. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Cynthia, and congratulations. And we're very happy to have you as part of the team. So
Thank you. This concludes our human resources report for today. The management team and I want to sincerely thank our employees for their hard work and dedication to the district and the people that we serve. Thank you.
thank you. Photo time. Thank you. Moving on to action items. Item 8, this is our public hearing for Resolution 2025-09, establishing sewer standby assessments. This is the time and place fixed to publicly hear all protests, objections, or appeals with respect to the sewer standby assessments. The public hearing will be declared open and staff will give the report. I will then call for comments from the public. During this time, there will be no back and forth conversation between the public and the board and staff. All questions will be noted and will be addressed after all public comments have been received. The public hearing will then be closed and the board may discuss and vote on the proposed assessments. I declare the public hearing open. Secretary report, please.
Notice of public hearing was published in the Desert Sun on May 23rd and May 30th, 2025. Additionally, postcards detailing this public hearing were mailed to all affected customers on May 7th, 2025. As of this afternoon, there are no comments or protests on this item.
Okay, thank you. And we have a staff report.
We do, President Sewell. Arturo Seja, Director of Finance, will be providing a presentation. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sol, and members of the board. I'll give you a quick update report on the sewer and water standby together. That way we can get it out of the way. And if you have any more questions on the water standby, we can come back to that on the second item on the agenda. Every year we do this for those service areas that are near a connection, so that we can maintain those lines and continue to keep updating them and ready whenever these customers are ready to connect. That is what the service standby charge is for both water and sewer. That means there is infrastructure close by enough that we can connect these properties. We are updating the agreement with Raftellus at the moment to review these fees as well and have them ready by the end of the year so that we have an updated number, just because we know the costs have gone up and these expenses to the district have not been updated for quite some time. For the sewer district, small amount, 878 properties with a tune of $10,800. And that's in essence the balance of those properties. As soon as one of these properties connects or they divide the lot in any way, those numbers get updated. But mostly whenever they do connect to the sewer, we do take them off of the list and stop charging them standby charges, and then connect them and start charging them the monthly charge on their water bill or the property taxes. And that concludes on the sewer. Now we're going to go into the water numbers.
Actually, do we want to do the water as part of the public hearing related to the water specific item? This is more of a question for JP, I believe.
Yeah, I think the item that we're on right now is the sewer standby fees.
So,
I'll answer any questions you may have on the sewer standby charges.
okay, and before we get to board discussion, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
President Sewell, not online.
And seeing none in person, let's see. With that, I'll declare the public hearing closed and we can have a board discussion. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Director Martin?
No.
Director Martin?
No.
Director Duff?
Just clarifying, 10,870 versus the 12 that we saw on Thursday.
That's the budget that we add in there. for any that we might have missed last minute. This is a report we get from our consultant that puts these together, and there's always stragglers, and I always want to make sure that we cover those. So that is
Okay.
budget versus what the report shows.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I have nothing further. With that, do we have a motion?
I'll move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great, thank you. And now we'll do that again for the water. So this is our public hearing for Resolution 2025-10 to establish water standby assessments. This is the time and place fixed to publicly hear all protests, objections, or appeals with respect to the water standby assessments. The public hearing will be declared open and staff will give their report. I will then call for comments from the public. During this time, there will be no back and forth conversation between the public and the board and staff. All questions will be noted and will be addressed after the public comments have been received. The public hearing will then be closed and board may discuss and vote on the proposed assessments. I declare the public hearing open. May I have a secretary's report, please?
Notice of public hearing was published in the Desert Sun on May 23rd and May 30th, 2025. Additionally, postcards detailing this public hearing were mailed to all affected customers on May 7th, 2025. As of this afternoon, there are no comments or protests on this item.
Thank you. Staff report?
I would ask our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, to give this presentation. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Again, President Sewell and members of the board. Similar to the sewer standby charges, these are the water connections. We do have different areas of the district. That's why you see several different reports for those water connections that we did a while back. It was by area. And the total for the water standby charges is 4,500 properties for a total of 231,000 approximately that we do put on the property taxes to maintain those lines. And again, those fees will be reviewed before the end of the year so that we have updated amounts for next year.
Great. And with that, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
President Sewell, not online.
Okay. And with that, we'll close the public hearing. And any questions from board or comments? Director Duff? Vice President? Director Mark?
No.
Director Mark?
Pretty cut and dry. We do this every year. So
Right. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve item 9.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Arturo. Item 10, Resolution 2025-11, addition of delinquent accounts to the county tax rolls. It is recommended to adopt resolution number 2025-11, requesting the addition of delinquent water and sewer charges and other fees of $5 or more to the 2025-26 Riverside County tax rolls. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. On Thursday, we provided a presentation on this item. However, our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, here is available to answer any questions and provide any additional information the board desires.
Director Martin, any questions or comments? Director Maya?
I just have one question. Do the water agencies get together like the utility companies, let's say like the Edison? I had a friend a number of years ago who complained about their bill and took off, went to Missouri, got to Missouri, and they wouldn't turn on his electricity until he paid the bill here in California. So there's nothing set up like that that would make this process faster?
No, we're limited by county. There's, our jurisdiction lies with the Riverside County, and we can't do anything on someone else's.
This is the only way.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Director Duff? Vice President?
So I noticed on the last, at the end, right before you voted, but if you could take a look at the bottom, this says 2019 Strategic Communication Plan Draft. You think it would be nice if we're gonna have a footer that actually applies to what we see?
And And I have nothing further. Do we have a motion on item 10?
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 11, resolutions 2025-12, 13, and 14 are 2025-26 operating and capital budget appropriations limit and classification plan. It consists of the operating capital budgets fiscal year 2025-26, our appropriations limit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026, and our employee classification plan effective July 1st, 2025. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. As you know, we provided a presentation at the board workshop on June 3rd. In addition, at the study session last Thursday, our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, is available to answer any questions or provide additional information as requested by the board. Arturo, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nothing to add. I'll gladly answer any questions you may have.
Okay. And I'll just add that the addition that didn't make it into the packet was very concise and detailed. And I think every year our budget has just been getting better and better. So thank you for all the work that's put into that. Any questions or comments, Director Martin?
No.
Director Meyerhoffen?
No.
Director Duff?
Mine were addressed on Thursday. Thank you.
Vice President? I think that's a sign of a job well done. With that, do we have a motion for item 11?
I will move.
And I will second. We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 12, Resolution 2025-15, Adoption of the Mission Springs Water District Procurement Policy. It is recommended that the board adopt resolution number 2025-15, updating and amending the district's policies governing procurement, purchasing, and disbursement of funds, and rescinding all previously adopted policies that conflict with the revised provisions. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. On Thursday, we provided a presentation by Will Witten, our business analyst. Today, our Assistant General Manager who put together the document is available for any additional questions and provide any additional information. So with that, would you like to add anything?
Good afternoon. Thank you, General Manager Macy. Nothing to add, just that Will did a very nice job last week of giving you an overview of the document. The main goal here is to be able to take several different policies and provide them into one standardized document. And it really follows with what we're trying to do with our strategic plan and trying to provide clarity and get some of these older documents aligned. And with that, I don't have anything additional to add to it, but I am here for questions or for additional input or any changes you'd like to see.
Any questions, comments from the board? Director Duff? Vice President? Director Martin?
No.
Director Meyerhoffen?
Thank
Great job. Thank you. And with that, do we have a motion on the item?
I will move that we adopt Mission Springs Water District Procurement Policy Resolution 2515.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Go ahead.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 13, contract agreement with TKE Engineering for on-call professional general engineering services. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to execute a contract agreement with TKE Engineering for on-call professional general engineering services in the amount of $200,000 for fiscal year 2025-26.
Thank you, President Sewell. Eric Weck, our engineering manager, provided a presentation on this item on Thursday. It looks like he has another presentation to go over or to answer any questions that you may have. Eric, is there anything you'd like to add to your presentation from Thursday for the board?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. No, I don't have anything new to add other than Mr. Steve Ledbetter is in the audience, and he can answer any additional questions as well. Other than what was said on Thursdays, there's nothing to add.
Thank you. Director Martin, any questions, comments? Director Meyerhoffen?
I don't know if this is appropriate time. I'm just, long as he's there. Who's responsible for that landscaping in front of the, and I say this because we're approving her representation for the district and going, but the landscaping in front of the Nancy Wright treatment plant, who is responsible for doing that?
So this is not part of this
Okay.
particular item, but you asked it under this pretense. So I will ask Steve to answer your question as this construction manager representing Mission
she's-
Springs Water District. So it's a different part of a different contract, but under this pretense. Steve, can you answer that question, please?
The contractor was responsible for the landscaping at the entrances for the regional plant.
Okay, thank you.
Director Duff?
Thank you for coming, Steve. I'm not sure if the questions are for you. I think they're for staff that I have, and it's all relying on that grid from page 136 that showed all of the things that you do. I just wanted to know from staff who's assigned to join you on those meetings, or could someone from staff tell me what, because there's 7, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them that are attended monthly or quarterly or bi-monthly. And I know staff attends with you. I just wanted to know which staff members are assigned to each of these, or which departments are assigned to each.
Just very quickly, thank you, Eric, for bringing this back up. The Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, that is AGM Champion. Mission Creek Subbasin is myself. The Sigma San Gorgonio Pass, that's also myself. The Salt Nutrient Management Plan is Steve and I as well. And then as we keep going down, I believe that addresses those specifically.
The bottom three.
Bottom three. So the Urban Water Management Plan, I don't know that we've had any meetings as it leads to that, but I know that you attend those, and so does Marion.
Previously, yes.
And then we have it goes back to Mission Creek, the subbasin, the alternate plan update. That would be Steve and I, as well as the groundwater sustainability for the San Gorgonio Pass would be Steve and I. So it's really just the three of us, and we split the time depending on the issue.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Vice President, questions or comments? I have nothing further. Thank you, Steve. With that, do we have a motion for item 13?
I will move.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
and President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 14, Joint Community Facilities Agreement between.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
President Sewell. There is someone that had a conflict representing part of the Skyborn Ventures, Michael Bush. He's not going to be available until 4:45. So we're about 15 minutes ahead of his
Okay.
scheduled attendance, and we've been watching to see when he joins, and he hasn't joined yet. So
Okay.
just move this down until Michael Bush shows up, and then we'll come back to that item. We'd appreciate it.
Perfect. So with that, we will skip 14 for now and move on to item 15, and that is contract agreement renewal with Intelisys Communication Services for information technology professional services. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with Intelisys Communication Services for information technology professional services for the 12-month period of July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026 in the amount of $125,544.44 plus a 10% contingency for a total of $138,099 and to do all things necessary to execute the agreement. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. Our Innovation and Technology Manager presented some of the key points to this contract extension, or actually a new contract under the previous, just continuing our one-year agreements. Kurt, is there anything you'd like to add from Thursday's presentation?
No, but I'm here for questions.
With that, we'll open up to any questions.
Great. Director Duff, any questions? Vice President? Director Martin?
No.
Great job again. With that, do we have a motion for the item?
I will move.
I'll second it.
I think Director Duff gets this one. And with that, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
and President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 16, acceptance of the water supply assessment and water supply verification for the 20th Avenue Logistics Center project. It is recommended that the board accept and approve the water supply assessment and water supply verification for the 20th Avenue Logistics Center project in the city of Desert Hot Springs. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. Eric Weck, our engineering manager, provided a presentation on Thursday. I will ask if he has anything to add to that presentation and then open up to any questions. Eric?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. No, there's nothing new to add.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any questions from the board? Director Martin?
No.
Director Meyerhoffen? Director Duff? We're very productive in our Thursday meetings. I'll just make a comment that if you're attending the meeting to get information, you should look at our Thursdays meeting. With that, do we have a motion?
I will make the motion very slowly because we still have 13 minutes, and at the rate we're gone, we're gonna need a break. So I will move we accept the water supply assessment and water supply verification for the 20th Avenue Logistics Center project.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 17, approve change order number 2 with Southwest Pump and Drilling Incorporated for the on-call well and booster maintenance and repair services contract and augmentation of the capital budget. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to approve change order number 2 with Southwest Pump and Drilling Incorporated for the on-call well and booster maintenance and repair services contract. This change order will increase the contract amount by $78,725.66, which includes a 10% contingency, revising the total contract amount from $197,549 to a not to exceed amount of $276,274.66. Staff also recommends augmenting the capital budget by $88,000 and authorizing the general manager to do all things necessary to complete the project. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. On Thursday, our Director of Operations, Danny Friend, provided some information and a presentation on this item. I'd ask Danny to add to that presentation, answer any questions. Have anything to add?
General Manager Macy, I do not have anything to add. I'm here to answer any questions if there are any.
Are you sure you don't want to say?
I would just appreciate the board's consideration in this request. It would definitely help the operations and getting our wells. Should I speak slower, sir?
No, you're fine. Thank you.
Getting our wells up and running and getting this to the summer.
And Vice President, you can start then. You have a question?
I do have a question. Just to reiterate, we kind of is this the one we push because summer's coming? Or is that the emergency one? Or is that one further down?
No, this is the emergency item. We
Yeah.
added 88,000 to the budget augmentation.
Yeah,
To move.
that's so we need to
allow
do
us-
this so that we can get this done right away because it is already hot, correct?
That's correct. And so, yes, I originally requested this in the fiscal year budget 26 that was earlier presented. However, I'm pushing it because at this time, staff has implemented all of our redundancy and our resiliency that we have in the system. So although we're doing okay, if there is a hiccup, we will not be in that position.
And unlike today, we don't want to drag this out.
Preferably, that's correct, Vice President.
Thank you.
Director Duff, any comments?
No comments. I'd like to make a motion to approve change order number 2 with Southwest Pump and Drilling, Inc. for the on-call well and booster maintenance and repair services contract and augmentation of the capital budget.
Great. And just to double check, did we have any comments or questions? So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second for item 17. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you.
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 18, Resolution 2025-16, placing nomination of Russ Martin as a member of the Association of California Water Agencies Region 9 Board. It is recommended to approve Resolution 2025-16, nominating Russ Martin to serve on one or more of Aqua's Region 9 boards. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. On Thursday, we brought this item to you at the time just to get board input on how who was going to be the board member that we were going to be nominating. We then decided that Director Martin would be one that we would propose being considered by Aqua. Therefore, we've updated the resolution, provided the nomination form and those associated documents in the packet, and able to answer any questions you may have about the process.
Okay. And Russ, did you have any comments or?
Just wanted, maybe this is premature, but I just want to thank the Water District for the support and staff on this. As it's been pointed out, and my experience has been the last Region 9 meeting wasn't the most exciting board member, and I'll do everything in my power to make it a little more interesting and exciting. And, yes, I know you want to say something.
And
Does that mean you'll stay awake for it?
Yes, I will stay awake for the meeting. Yes.
any
I-
comments?
I'm glad you said that because I was beginning to think you might be overqualified for this.
Director Duff? Vice President?
Are you sure?
And with that, do we have a motion?
I will move.
And I will second.
And I'll vote aye.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 19, Board Member Affiliation Listing Update. At the discretion of the Board of Directors, discuss, amend, and approve if desired the updated affiliation listing. And we discussed this at our previous meeting, but it was not as a action item. So we brought it back this month to be able to take action on that. And I believe we've had most of the discussion, but do we have anything further to discuss before motion?
No.
And with that, we're open for motions to amend the affiliations listing.
May I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to change the CVAG General Assembly to being all directors instead of just the assigned, as I feel that it's important for all electeds to be present at the CVAG General Assembly.
And that's annual.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the CVAG Annual Assembly to move it up to the top section that's all directors are pre-approved to attend. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. Do we have any other changes or amendments we'd like to make to affiliation list?
Yeah, I think it came up, we had lengthy discussion last meeting concerning the language of restrictive language of the participation in BIA events, to restricting it to the Coachella Valley when it, I felt it was more appropriate for it to be our participation in Riverside County meetings, et cetera, because My reasoning was that we are a county water district, and I can't think of any other organization that deals more with water and sewer issues than the building industry. So I think it's important for us to attend the meeting. If you want to exclude golf tournaments and bowling, I'd be okay with that, but I think it's important for us to be involved in meetings throughout Riverside County.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
You made a motion, I'll make the second.
I think I already did make a motion.
I didn't-
Yes. So
Second.
the motion is to remove the only when held in Coachella Valley for both the building industry and the Desert Valley Builders Association. And with that, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
No.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
No.
President Sewell.
No.
Thank you. Motion dies.
Thank you. And I believe we had one more motion possibly regarding the planning.
Yes, as I explained Thursday, that the planning commission meetings are usually canceled, or no, I shouldn't say usually, on occasion are canceled when the city has streamlined the process and whatever's really being discussed there is being forwarded to the city council, and Director Martin is attending those, so there's no sense in two directors being paid to bring back the same information. So I'd like to make a motion that we remove the planning commission from the affiliates list.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second your motion.
We have a motion and a second to remove the DHS Planning Commission from our affiliations list. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And before we move on, any other amendments or changes we'd like to make to affiliation listing? Okay, thank you. Item 20, and that's our service agreement with Tyler Technologies Incorporated for Enterprise Resource Planning Pro 10 Financial Management Suite. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to execute a service agreement with Tyler Technologies Incorporated for an Enterprise Resource Planning Pro 10 Financial Management Suite. And we did not discuss this on Thursday, so.
No, we did not. And first of all, let me add that because this was not on our study session, this is outside of our normal process that we go through. However, this particular agreement we're bringing to you for possible action with the understanding that when we were reaching out and negotiating this contract, one of the things that we were asking Tyler to provide us was the same implementation team that they had used in other California water agency districts. And they said, yes, we have that team available. But if this goes on for longer than a month or so, the negotiating of the contract, they may not be available and they may be assigned somewhere else. So when we heard that, we felt that we were going to try to bring this to the board. This item and changing out our finance system and our software has been something we've been talking about for several years. I believe it's been on our capital improvement program for the last two budgets. So, and it's actually in our strategic plan as one of the specific items that we want to move forward. There are a variety of different things we can bring to the table. I know that Arturo may have some things to add, but I want to start with the existing system, the age of it, and why we would like to replace it. So I would ask our innovation and technology manager to start the conversation. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, members of the board. So our existing ERP system stands for Enterprise Resource Planning System, which kind of operates the backbone of all of our digital data. It's our financial system, it's payroll, it handles work orders, inventory, like it's everything. We've been using this system since the 1990s. And, obviously it's kept the district up and running. But it is, it's being supported by the developer who originally created it. And we kind of need something that's just a little bit more modern in the way that it's designed, the way that it operates its data, the way that we can connect to new systems. Expanding this system, any changes that we need to make, maybe to meet current regulations or just add some functionality that we require, that's all custom development. We got to build that from scratch. So moving to a system that was designed with all of that in mind, that has a full support team rather than just relying on one person, a full team that can support our system, gives us a lot more reliability and resiliency. The system is also something that we will not be managing in-house, like locally here on a server, which gives us a little bit of extra resiliency if we were to have a network issue. If there would be some catastrophe here in town, even with just a satellite connection, we could regain access to our system. So as far as cybersecurity goes, keeping the district up and running, moving to a system like Tyler Solutions would be fantastic for the district.
Great.
So with that of where we've been and why the need, I believe our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, has some things to talk about how we selected Tyler, the process we went through, and some of the other folks that are on the line that can answer any additional questions. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, and members of the board. We did receive, I believe, 7 proposals. Out of the 7, we had 3 of them come and do a presentation in this room, primarily to the accounting team and as well as customer service to integrate both the finance and the billing. And as we were looking at all these modules, they affected pretty much a lot of the district. So it's not only going to improve our procedures, it's going to create a better workflow in approvals as opposed to waiting on printing something paper-wise, then having to scan it again, reprint it, send it for approval. A lot of that is going to be done in the same program. With that said, this project is estimated to cost $1.05 million. Which is included in our capital improvement plan. I did ask Derek Bogue from Tyler Technologies to come and give you a small presentation about the process and the technology itself. So I'll pass it on to Derek.
Thank you, Arturo. It's an honor to be here to speak before the board today. So thank you for having me. I'm here to just kind of convey and just kind of relay why choosing the right partner who understands the complexity of your mission, the evolving demands of public services is a vital decision. I'm here to speak on behalf of Tyler Technologies and our Pro solution, in which what we have presented to the district. Our goal today is just to give you a clear and a confident understanding of how Tyler ERP Pro can help the district fulfill its commitment to provide, protect, and also preserve the most vital resources, which is water. So why Tyler? Why Tyler Pro Technologies? For over 3 decades, Tyler Technology has been a trusted partner to local governments, delivering integrated technology solutions to improve operational efficiencies, streamline processes, and enhance public service delivery. Tyler Pro's unified platform consolidates finance, HR, payroll, procurement, utilities, billing. So we will help agencies modernize operations, but also, most important, improve services while offering convenience and accountability to a single vendor approach. Just a little bit more about Tyler and what sets us apart. Financially, last year we produced a $2.4 billion in annual revenue. That's 20 plus consecutive profitable years. In terms of being a reliable partner, we have a 98% client retention rate of 13,000 clients nationwide, of which 200 are in the state of California. In terms of public sector experts, 45% of our 7,000 employees have worked in the public sector realm. So, and also 27% of our employees have been with Tyler for 10 years. As far as trusted nationwide, we have successfully installed 45,000 installations nationwide for 13,000 clients, and of which 200 of them are in the state of California. Just to wrap up as to why it matters for the district, implementing Tyler Technologies will empower Mission Springs Water District to better manage, protect, and sustain water resources while advancing its mission, your mission, to deliver the cleanest water in the world. Our platform will provide the tools needed to operate, greater efficiency, transparency, and accountability throughout. Faster service delivery, real-time data visibility to billing, budgeting, and water usage, simplified compliance and building reports and audit capabilities, and also a centralized support, one point of contact for all of your ERP needs. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you for your time, attention, and consideration. We look forward to the opportunity to partner with the district in advancing its mission. Thank you so much, Board of Directors.
That pretty much concludes the presentation. If there's any questions, please.
Before we let Derek go, Derek, I know one of the reasons we're bringing this today is because we wanted to get that implementation team for another water district here in California. Is that still on track? I know you've been dealing specifically with Joshua up to this point, but I just want to get your concurrence that that is still the case and that we will have that implementation team.
Yes, thank you, Jim Manager Macy. Yes, I have been in daily contact with our leadership team. It is a priority and a critical ask of us to have the same team on the other project to have the same as for the Mission Springs Water District's opportunity. So to answer your question, yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
Board has any questions? Not only is Derek, not only is Arturo, myself, Kurt, but also our consultant from Platinum Strategies, Joshua Bynum, is here as well. So, right, any questions?
Thank you all. Any questions or comments from the board? Director Martin? Director Meyerhoffen?
Costs a lot of money for intellectual copyrights. Thank you.
Director Duff?
Just a couple. I'm so glad we're here, by the way. I just want to say that really clearly. I'm really glad we're here. I want to confirm that, and I know the staff has done so much due diligence on this, but just so that it's said, we've confirmed that this works with receiving raw data from all of our other new systems that we've put on place, and we'll be bringing that, all of the SCADA data and everything in, and we'll be able to manipulate it in this new system, right?
Even better, a lot of that is within the system itself, so it's already connected. Most of it will be, and whatever is not, we are working with our GIS employee, Ryan, as well as Will, to make sure that those that are not, we have a system to implement and integrate.
And so this will get rid of all of the paper that goes from paper to program to program to program.
Including time cards.
I'm so happy. Thank you very much.
Vice President? And I guess just thinking about how long we've had our existing one, for it to go years is a long time. 3 decades is a really long time. But can you share a little bit more about the implementation and how long that's going to take? And is it going to like phase out to make sure there's no bugs as far as not just going from one to the other?
I'll pass it on to Derek, but one of the things we are doing is we have kept the current developer on staff basically to help with that process, and he will not be done with the district until we're completely moved over, and making sure that the data is connected, run side by side. We are planning on integrating 3 years worth of data before we go live, and that's one of the things that Tyler does amazingly, the ability to test the system before we go live. So Derek?
Thank you. Thank you, President Sewell, for your question. Yes, our implementation process is a rigorous process, and we know how important it is and how serious it is for the district. We take that as important as it is on the pre-sale side, as is the post-sale side. We have 200 professional experts that are aligned to each to be ready available for each project. Each project, each opportunity will be assigned a project manager. The process overall will take anywhere from 9 to 11 months. Yes, it is a different phase process until we'll assess, we'll identify, we'll reach and accomplish each phase until we step towards the next phase. And what's important, what's unique is that we will go on the time frame of the district, meaning we will go as fast as the district is available to go, because we don't want to exhaust any of the staffers' time that's going to be aligned and assigned to the project. So that's important to us. We know that you guys have a task to do day to day, and we'll adhere to your time frame in terms of how fast or how slow you like to move to get it done correctly.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the board? With that, do we have a motion? Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
President Sewell, can we go back to item 14? We do have the
Yes.
available consultants on the call at this point.
Perfect. So item 14 is our joint community facilities agreement between Mission Springs Water District, the City of Desert Hot Springs, Skyborn Ventures LLC, Lennar Homes of California, and AGEHC 2 California 2 LP. Hopefully I said that right. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to execute a joint community facilities agreement between those aforementioned parties.
Thank you, President Sewell. We gave a presentation on this on Thursday, and since then I've received several other comments or questions regarding this. Therefore, we've asked that Jim Kozak and Michael Bush both come back today to answer any additional board questions. With that being said, I will open up for any questions, knowing that Mike and Jim are available for any questions.
Okay. And then Director Martin, were you going to recuse yourself?
Yes.
On this? Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need to do that before discussion?
Yes. So you're recusing yourself on this item because you live,
Because the parties participating in it supported my campaign and donated my
Right.
campaign.
okay. So for that reason, Director Martin's going to step out of the room.
And with that, do we have questions or comments? Director Meyerhoff?
Yes, excuse me. I'd like to thank the folks over there at Skyborn for the working relationship with the water district we've had all these years. And I know we'll continue with that. And that this agenda item here and what we're trying to do here is in the benefit of the city and the water district and the people that we serve. Thank you.
Before we continue, I apologize. We've had some technical difficulty. The person we were looking for, Michael Bush, we thought was on the call, but he is not on the call right now. So at this point, I'd still like to hold off on any questions and answer until Michael's on the call. Because I know some of the detail that he is the one that's put this agreement together. So with that being said, we'll probably bring in Director Martin back in and then continue through the discussion items and come back to 11. I apologize for that.
No problem.
Represent everyone.
Sorry, Russ.
It's okay. Nice to have a break.
So we'll, in the meantime, move on to our discussion items. Item 21 is our Critical Services Center and Administrative Building update.
Yes, thank you. We have Avin Flores from Renault Clark available to provide an update on the Critical Services Center.
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good afternoon, President Sewell, members of the board, and district staff. Last we spoke regarding the Critical Service Center and the administration building. We were still waiting on one set of comments from the city. We've since received those comments. I'll quickly go through just some highlight comments from the three different departments right now. The first set will be from the building department. So some of the comments were related to clarifying our code analysis, which dealt with showing a little bit more information regarding the easements, some more detail in terms of how we're showing assumed property lines between buildings, some frontage clarifications. We had a couple of comments regarding our egress out of one of the lounge spaces, and some quick comments on short and long-term bicycle storage requirements. When it comes to the fire safety review, one of the comments they mentioned was removing the traffic calming devices that we had shown in the parking lot, and it's asking for some additional clarification on the fire access roadway widths. And then outside of that, there were some specifics regarding Knox box model numbers and locations. For the planning comments, which was the last set of comments that we received, they asked to remove the featherweed plants. And there was also a small section of chain link fence adjacent to the park that they were asking to remove and basically continue with some of the ornamental fencing that we were showing on the rest of the campus. So those comments are being addressed and finalized. The only open comments, larger comments that we've been working back and forth with the city are regarding the roadway improvements along Park Lane. There's been a handful of discussions between Mission Springs and the district, and also brought in the adjacent school district. And there's a handful of other items that we are dialing in right now, which should be more or less finalized once we have one more quick meeting with the city to finalize scope and some of the development agreements between the city and the water district. Currently, we're targeting approvals. Once we resubmit, we're assuming there's a little bit more back and forth that we'll have to do, but targeting September for full approvals for this project at this point. So, and with that, if there's any questions or other comments.
Thank you, Alvin. Any questions from the board, Director Martin?
No.
Director Martin?
I think you mentioned something about short and long-term storage or parking for bicycles.
Bicycles, yes, it's a green building code requirement, and so we had an area designated for it, but I think they wanted some additional based on occupancy counts.
Okay, I just can't imagine that would be necessary, but if it's a green building code requirement, we'll
Yeah.
have to do it. Now I have to ask you, what about a spot for motorcycle?
There are no requirements specifically for motorcycles. The only other requirements would be for EV vehicles, but yeah, surprisingly.
People do pay right in with we do have a number of people riding motorcycles on Palm Drive. They come to pay their bills. So I think maybe we ought to have a little space there somewhere. Man, that's all I have.
Director Duff?
Can you elaborate on the comments regarding the speed bumps, the traffic calming?
Oh, the traffic calming. Yeah. So we provided a handful just because in our original design, there was a fairly long drive as you go into the site. So we just didn't want people driving too fast through there. So hence why we added that. According to the fire reviewer, their general stance is that those devices can cause delays in terms of the response time for emergency vehicles. So they have asked us to remove those.
The fire. Okay. Well, thank you.
Vice President?
I have to piggyback because actually this is my question, was the bicycle thing.
Okay.
What differentiates between short term and long term? Is that like 2 hours versus 8, or are we talking like a month? And who is going to park their bike there for a month?
So short term would be, in this case, customers. They're there just for their service, and then long term would be for employees. So basically, we would usually use it's called a FTE, the full-time employee. So if they're going to be there for, I can't remember exactly the amount of time, but 6 to 8 hours, for instance.
Okay, thank you.
And overall, it just seems like most of the comments and everything was pretty straightforward and should be relatively easy for us to adjust.
Correct. Yeah, I think as I mentioned, the two big ones toward the end were the ones that there's a little bit more back and forth with it, but I believe we're to a good point for resolution. So,
okay, great. Well, thank you, Alvin.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything further from staff?
No, President Sewell.
Okay. Item 22, groundwater protection program update.
Thank you, President Sewell. I'll ask Steve Ledbetter from TKE to provide an update on the groundwater protection program.
Good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. I wanted to give a quick presentation on the progress on the regional wastewater reclamation program. The regional water reclamation facility, the startup testing and performance testing were all completed by mid-May. The performance testing went well. The plant is performing within the requirements of the specifications and within the requirements of the waste discharge permit, with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. All field work is scheduled to be completed before June 30th, as intended or as on schedule. There's only a couple items remaining that are being completed right now. And one was some added scope to modify how the aerated sludge system is controlled. Previous operator at the plant had it controlled, I'll just call it a dummy system, where it was basically an on-off switch. And current operations staff wants more flexibility and the ability to program that in with your SCADA system. So they're adding a few more set points to that area of the plant. That's really the only thing left as far as construction goes. We do intend to bring the notice of completion to the board next month for approval. The regional sewer conveyance line, everything related to the conveyance line from the Dos Palmas lift station to the treatment plant is done, operational, and been operating since February without any hiccups. The diversion at the Horton wastewater treatment plant to divert additional flows down to regional and provide some reprieve for long-term maintenance at Horton. We're waiting on the electrical equipment to be procured. That should be coming in at the end of this month or early July, and they need about 2 or 3 weeks to finish that construction once they have the equipment. But because we're going to be needing to bypass sewer flows around the area and work, we're really trying to make sure we have all materials on hand and not give the contractor the notice to proceed until that happens. The Area M2 Septic to Sewer Program. Last Monday, we received approval from the State Water Resource Control Board to move forward with bidding of the project. They had that package from April of 23 until last Monday. We worked with staff last week with engineering staff to develop the schedule for bidding. We're intending to hit the streets with it by July 2nd, open bids by the end of July, and either have that back to the board for approval for construction in August or September. A few of the items we're also working out the previous wage rate determinations to make sure we're in compliance with Davis-Bacon requirements and state requirements. Those were all pulled last in April of 24. So we're pulling all new ones to put that out. In addition, with the, I don't know if I want to call it a department, but with the new contracting department, our contracting staff here at Mission Springs, they're going through and reviewing that bid package as well to make sure it meets all current insurance requirements, and all the labor compliance requirements are also meeting MSWD standards as a bid package against a little over a year old. So that's where we're at with that. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Director Duff?
No questions. Thank you.
Vice President?
No.
Director Martin?
No.
Director Myra?
Yes, I have one. What type of water are you using to water the plants at the Nancy Wright Regional?
At the regional plant, it's potable water.
It's potable water, because I noticed that bubblers were purple.
The original intent was to irrigate that with recycled water at the plant. However, it's outside the fence line, so we couldn't get a variance from the regional board to do that because there's a potential for the public to come in contact with that water. So we had to change that at kind of the last minute. I believe that is an oversight that those are purple. I will get with my team and get those swapped out so there's no ambiguity that that is not recycled water, that is in fact potable water.
As you know, I went by there and I have a couple complaints about it. So this probably isn't the time. I am going to make a recommendation later on in the meeting during our commissioner comments about how it should be done. Thank you.
Director Meyerhoffen, any comment you have, please get it to staff and we'll do our best to get it implemented.
I appreciate that, Steve. I know you will.
Thank you very much, Steve. Item 23, Long Range Financial Plan Update.
Thank you, President Sewell. As you know, we gave a presentation regarding the long-range financial plan at a workshop. John Wright from Raftillis is here to provide additional information. There were some requests made at that workshop. At this point, I will ask John to provide his presentation, and then we'll go from there. John?
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager. Board, thank you for having me here tonight. As you just heard, we had a presentation that we made to you at a workshop regarding the long-range financial plan, which was perhaps as much as about 4 to 6 weeks ago. And tonight, we wanted to come back with some revisions to the financial plan based on work that Brian and Arturo have done with us. And I've been really impressed by how fast the board has moved through all of its agenda items. So I'll try to make this fast for you tonight. So this is a follow-up to that meeting that was held on May 6th. We're going to look at updated water and sewer financial planning scenarios. And for both water and sewer, we've looked at 3 scenarios: status quo, which means no rate increases and no external debt financing. And then scenario 2 is rate increases without any debt. And then scenario 3 is a combination of rate increases and debt. And so what we've done that I think is a modification of what you saw on May 6th is that we developed a financing strategy for the headquarters building, which is included in the capital improvement program expenditures. And 60% of the costs are allocated to the water utility. And what we would see is we would see $6 million expenditure in 26 and an $18 million expenditure in 27. All of our budgetary projections are based on FY25 or FY26 budget information provided by Arturo. And those budget information or amounts are then escalated forward over a planning horizon based on inflation assumptions, which we'll talk about momentarily. We do still feature customer account growth at 2.1% in the model. And I don't know, General Manager, if you would like to in any way address that 2.1%. I think it comes out of the master planning process. And after really looking at it, I think we feel comfortable with that growth rate. And then there's a minor decline in annual consumption per account, which is really a decline that's associated with additional conservation ethic, natural replacement of low efficiency fixtures, that sort of thing. In the middle part of this slide, we see our inflation factors. None of the inflation factors have changed except for utilities. And what you saw on May 6th featured an annual growth in electric utility costs of 7.5%. And that 7.5% was based on the most recent Southern California Edison increase granted by the California Public Utilities Commission, which was, I believe, 7.2%. But as Brian and Arturo looked at the projection of electric power costs over a 10-year planning horizon, one of the things that they felt is that we were not appropriately taking into consideration solar energy credits that the district receives. And that solar power, number one, reduces your electric bill. And number two, it allows you to sell power back to the grid. And so we've dropped the escalation in electric power costs to 5% starting in FY28. And then we have the same reserve targets, 25% of annual O&M as an operating reserve and 50% of annual depreciation expense as a capital reserve. So here's a look at water scenario number 1, which is basically the status quo do nothing scenario. Here we don't have any rate increases, and we're in a situation where number 1, on the far right side, we run out of cash by basically FY29. And then on the far left side, we are not able to meet our debt service coverage requirements starting in FY29. And down at the bottom is where we see the rate increase in debt inputs, which I realize you can't see at the top of this slide because it's a little small. No rate increases and no debt increases or debt proceeds. The second scenario is trying to do everything with rates, and we would use no external debt financing. And what you can see is that scenario works except in FY27 and FY28. And I'm looking at the far right on the slide that says ending fund balance. And the inputs for the rate revenue increases under this scenario are 20% increase in 26, a 20% increase in 27, and a 10% increase in 28. In order to have a positive ending cash reserves in 27 and 28. We would probably need to input rate increases in 26 and 27 in the 30 to 35% range, and maybe as much as 20% in FY 28. And that's, I think, from at least my perspective, that's an unrealistic solution to expect that the board would accept rate increases at that level. So down at the bottom of this slide, you can see the rate increases 2020 and 10, not quite enough really to get us over the hump in terms of cash reserves in 27 and 28. Now, scenario 3 is the scenario I think that's the most realistic scenario for the district if you elect to go forward with your headquarters building. And this is a combination of rate increases and debt financing. And when we look on the far right, we see that we have ending cash reserves that are in excess of our minimum target all the way through FY 2033. And only in 2034 and 2035 do we fall short on cash. And frankly, over a 10-year planning horizon, who knows what's going to happen in terms of required CIP or state of California regulatory requirements. But under this scenario, we're good on cash reserves really for the first 7 to 8 years of the 10-year planning horizon. And then on the far right, or excuse me, on the far left, we see our debt service coverage ratios, which are very healthy and above our minimum targets. So at the bottom of this slide is kind of a summary. And what you would see is 8% annual rate revenue increases each year from 26 to 30. And then you'd see a $5 million debt proceeds in FY 26 and a $15 million debt proceeds in 27. And those would be timed to be associated with primarily the expenditures on the headquarters building. And so of the three scenarios, this combination of rate increases and debt is the most plausible one from an acceptability perspective. But you, the board, may not agree with that. Sewer is in a better financial position than water, and we'll see that momentarily. And I apologize to you. The top of this slide should say sewer financial plan modifications. I apologize for that. Sewer would be allocated 40% of the headquarters building's costs. And we have a unique situation on sewer in that the district has a $15.6 million line of credit from Wells Fargo, which we have included as something that needs to be paid back in FY 26. And if necessary, I think Arturo can speak a little bit more about that to you. So sewer scenario 1 is do nothing. And even under the do nothing scenario, really the only problem we have with sewer is on the left side of this slide is that we don't meet our debt service coverage requirements throughout the planning horizon. We do have a lot of cash, which is a very good thing, even without rate increases, but we're not quite there on the debt service coverage. And the bottom of this slide shows you once again the do nothing, no rate increases, no debt. Scenario 2 is rate increases only. And what's plugged into this model is a 8% increases in 26 and 27 and a 4% increase in 28. We meet our debt service coverage requirements in our fund balances for cash reserves. And then scenario 3 is rate increases plus debt. And those rate increases are 4% across the planning horizon from 26 to 2030, with debt issues of $2 million and $6 million in FY 26 and FY 27. And so I think scenario 2 or scenario 3 could be plausible. I think the only question on these scenarios is what the board would like to do with your headquarters building. And once you make a decision as to how you'd like to move forward with your headquarters building, then I think that what Brian and Arturo and I will sit down and do is one more deep dive into these models and make sure that the inputs are correct and the models are performing correctly. But this is kind of an update as to where we stand currently. Um, in terms of where we're at on this rate study, Raftellus is trying to complete the cost of service analysis, which our target for doing that is the end of June. And what the cost of service analysis will do is it'll help us define how much we need to recover from different customer classes. Next would come proposed rates. And Brian has laid out a potential timeline for beginning community meetings and a Prop 218 process with the objective of new rates implemented. I think, Brian, what you have for new rates is February 17th is new rates implemented. So this is just kind of an update for you. Brian or Arturo, did you have other comments?
No, if this concludes your presentation, if you can go to the next, if you have another slide, that would be great. Perfect. Just to let the board know, one of the things that we've talked about and was successful for Mission Springs Water District in the past was that we went out to the community, got some key leaders, asked their opinions. We shared the same information. We went through the entire process of how the rates are developed and things of that nature. And then we sat down with some community leaders and said, what do you think it is? I think, John, what he presented today shows a couple of things the board was asking. If we do nothing, with the worst case scenario? And is there an answer or a path forward based on what we have as a CIP, which I think he's shown that we probably could. However, I think at this point, the question is, do we move forward with the customer service or getting some of the community leaders out there? And I believe the answer that we've heard and talked about at times is yes. If the board would like to see what that schedule would look like, it's a little bit different than what John just provided, only because we have the 4-month window that talked about the new process to go through to try to harden yourself, if you will, from a legal perspective. And I think AGM Champion has put together a schedule that talks about the specifics of how would we implement both that 4-month window as well as the public hearings, as well as the community outreach events and things of that nature. Marion, if you'd like to go through that right now, I think it'd be the right time for that. And then we can come back and answer any questions both to John as well as ourselves and how this can potentially move forward.
Thank you, General Manager Macy. I have put together kind of a loose outline for a strategy for communications. Should we want to go out and start implementing this in February of 2026, we really have to start backtracking so that we have enough time for the community advisory group. Looking at this, I want to make sure that we have enough time for the Prop 218 and also that newly adopted AB 2257. This timeline ensures that, all of the community will have ample opportunity to voice their thoughts and provide feedback. If we were to move forward with this, I would like to see that we start assembling this group as early as this week. I could send out, we could start sending out community notices asking for community members to step forward, fill out a form with some information about themselves, and then we could assemble this group and we could have our first meetings as early as July 8th. And we would have those meetings throughout the month of July. And that way we would have a recommendation back to the board by August is my goal. We'd have an August recommendation back to the board. Once the board hears that and approves our communication going out to the public, we would then have our Prop 218/AB 2257 mailer that goes out at the end of August. And then we would have additional public hearings in October of 2025 to make our final decisions. Going back to that, though, when we talk about doing those mailers out in August of 2025, we would also be doing community meetings during that 45-day window. So we'd have a pretty heavy communications and engagement window during that time that we'd be doing community meetings, both ones that we are hosting, but then also going into some of the different groups, going to like Mission Lakes Country Club and Rotary and some of the different service groups and going out and presenting to those groups as well. So we hit the different areas. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I want to hit a little bit deeper on what the advisory committee might look like. I've given it an acronym of CLEAR. It's a community listening, engagement, and advisory on rates. We would look at doing an application window that opens up later this week with a deadline by July 2nd. we would be able to close that window and assemble the final roster. So that way we could start our Tuesday evening meetings throughout the month of July, starting July 8th, July 15th, July 22nd, and July 29th. This gives us an opportunity to really specify and look at the wastewater department, the water department. Then we can also give them some time for some community input and questions. And then another meeting so that we can actually follow up on their input and questions so that they can work to formulate their recommendation. And hopefully we'd have that recommendation all buttoned up and ready to come back to the board at their August 18th meeting. And I do have this in greater detail, should you guys like to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, AGM Champion. With that, I'd like to open up to any board questions for either Marion for the CLEAR process or where we are with the long-range financial plan, John Wright with Ref Ellis.
Okay. Any questions, Director Martin?
Yeah. Are we actively pursuing grant funding for the new building headquarters? Pursuing a grant for that?
We have always tried to find as much grant funding as we can, whether it be for the administrative building, the water, or the sewer side. One of the things that we have secured some funding, the issue may be if it's still available because of some of the delays we had with the building itself, was some of the conservation areas. We're also going to be looking into EV participation only because we're required to have EVs, and sometimes there's some funding out for that. So we're always going to be looking into some grant funding for those types of opportunities. Also, if we are successful in working with the city to put the water line down Park Lane, there is going to be a developer agreement in place for that to allow if the Riverside County goes across the street, they'll help us with some of that cost as well as some of the improvement costs on Park Lane. So yes, not only are we looking at grant funding, but we're also looking for any other funding sources, including developers in the area. So the answer is yes. It's just we do not have anything committed right now from a grant perspective.
Because we've been very fortunate, lucky. I don't want to say lucky, fortunate. In obtaining grants, and I just want to make sure that we actively proceed with that process as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Director Meyer?
Yes, concerning the advisory committee, I'd like to get together with Assistant General Manager Champion. There's a few areas in District 5 that I would like to mention to you. I don't know the people personally, but I do know that some of them are active in that area, and I would like to speak to you about that, make a suggestion.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Duff?
I'm processing. I love the CLEAR. I think that's great. I am a little curious as to what the application looks like. If I could see that, just out of my own curiosity to see what we're asking of our community to participate. I want to make sure that it's as open as possible and that we have as little restriction as possible. If someone wants to participate, I hope that we find every way possible.
Because we have a very condensed timeline, we will definitely be looking at a lot of people who have reaching out directly to people who have done Water 101 with us, if they've done tours with us, people who are familiar with the district. But that's not to say that it would only be open to those members. It needs to be to anyone who's interested in water. And we can get them up to speed as quickly as possible, giving them that education about the district and what it is we do. So it's definitely not going to be only those people, but I would like to put down some questions. We'll use an online form, like a Google form type of thing, where we ask them, why are you interested in doing this, and get them thinking about the time commitment and what it is that they're doing, so that they know what they're signing themselves up for as well.
Absolutely.
Not just one-sided.
Great work. I'm looking forward to it. The numbers are a little scary, but I think it's premature for me to make any comments regarding those findings. But I think that we're still missing a couple pieces of the puzzle, which I know that we're still working on as far as some of the cost updates, which we hope to have done by June, which may change some of the numbers that we just saw also. So I look forward to continuing this process. Thanks for all your hard work.
Vice President?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but I don't know that I have all the information to ask them. So I think as we get further along in the process, I'll probably write them all down and get them all out.
So kind of along those lines of the calendar that you have for Clear, I mean, that's starting soon. How do we select like the options that Reptilis gave us, those numbers? Is that going to be incorporated in what Clear is going over? How do we start having them go over things if we as a board haven't kind of come to a general consensus?
So typically, so this will be the second time, well, I'm sorry, I've gone through this process before and right now it's still in its infancy for that decision-making process. We really want to hear from the customers. What projects are important to you? What are necessary in our minds? We want to work with them collaboratively to make sure that we're operating this district the way our customers want to see it. And also taking on more debt, taking on higher rates, what's important to them. And I think that's important to get their buy-in. I know each of you have your own groups of people that you listen to and still representing your districts, but we want to do something, we try to do something else as well, just to get some of the more knowledgeable folks that we're aware of, some of the folks that have participated in our Water 101s, people that know the district, know the value and what we bring to them, and get their impression so we can come back to you and say, this is what staff is recommending, but also this is what our customer service group, outreach group, Clear, is representing as well. And then let the board make the decision there. So trying to give you as much information, not only from the staff's perspective, our consultants, but also some of the customers that we have there as well. Just trying to continue to get more ideas on how to do this. So right now, the things that you saw from Raftilis are still being worked on, if you will, because there's still some issues that we're working through. But for the most part, the bigger issues are solidified, but it's all up for discussion. We start meeting with the customer service, or the Clear group, and then refining those, and then coming to you with, based on the feedback we've received, both what we've heard from the board, customers, and ourselves, this is what we're going to be recommending as a whole collective group.
And then we have some more questions, I think, but what is our deadline if we're trying to make that February date? What is our deadline as a board to decide what this rate structure plan would be?
I believe that's October 18th, which is the last number you see here, because what that does is then we start doing the process of doing the public notification for a public hearing in October.
Yes, August 18th would be the last board meeting that we would ask for your direction. And that would give us about a week to finalize the mailer. So that way we could get a mailer out by the 25th is our deadline to get that out. And that kind of starts that 45-day window for protests and objections. And so that's why that date is really important. And that will allow us to get to the October hearings.
Director Dempsey.
Question. Are we allowed to attend these community meetings as observers? I'd love to be a fly on the room and hear what my community says directly. I know that you guys do a great job at reporting, but I'd love to just be able to hear it. I know they're not recorded, so I'm just wondering if legally we're allowed to be a fly on the wall or if we are not allowed to be present.
That's going to be a question I'm going to ask John, just because I want to make sure that we don't have any Brown Act issues, because it's our closed meetings. They're not open to just general public walking in.
Maybe I'm the only nerd interested. I don't know.
Well, certainly if less than a majority of the board attend, then there's not a Brown Act issue. But it's going to be an open public meeting that anybody can attend, or is it just
when they will be closed?
The Clear meetings are going to be closed, then you can't attend those. A majority of you cannot attend those.
But if one
of you went to it, that would be okay.
Would 2 be acceptable?
As long as it's not a majority of the board.
Yeah, so 2 is acceptable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice President, did you?
And just, so we really kind of got two options there. And are we going to get more options? Like, oh, well, you're saying 8 across the board looks good, or 20-20-10, but are there going to be other options that might get us close to where we need to be, or just a little above? And you know what I'm saying? It's like you give me two options here. When I look at it, it's like, well, it's either A or B, but what if C or D might actually get us to where we need to, but in a different way? These are this is real simple. Across the board rates doesn't specify anything about fixed versus usage versus those kind of things. So I'm assuming we'll have a little bit more information and more options?
Absolutely. This is going to be an ongoing process from now on for the next 60 days. But you're absolutely correct. One of the things that we haven't provided you is the breakdown of how much is fixed, how much is going to be commodity, and then moving that forward as well, because that could play into some of these changes. And we could have different rates for different ones. We're just trying to keep it holistically right now, not only for where the board is right now, but also the clear group. But yes, when we start talking about those things, even though we're going to be reporting back to you once the clear group is selected, we'll be able to provide that in July, but also some of the things that you're just talking about, because there's a couple of different things that we want. We've had some discussions, but not really detailed discussions, not in addition to the fixed rate or the commodity rate, but also the number of tiers that the board, I think in one board meeting, we talked about having one tier or not having budget tiered rates because there's some risk involved with that. So those are some of the things that we will work through in the next 60 days with our consultant to make sure that that long range financial plan has those paragraphs, if you will, well established and well defined, because that's other policy decisions that we want to make sure we take to the customer group and then bring back to the board and continue to update that information to you.
And then is there also consideration? I know when DWDA did theirs, they did a conservation thing where if because of there's a drought or something, the usage drops off drastically, a revenue enhancer so that they can continue to do the projects that they need. Is that something that's being considered or?
John, do you want to talk to that? I think when I hear a drought, I hear the one thing that I think about is what happens if the drought contingency plan, if we do have a drought and the state starts levying those things, I believe those would be penalties or fees and outside the Prop 218 process. But I think there's also other ways of doing that I think you may be making reference to. DWA said if we lose 20% of our contingency, yes, so that would actually be part of the 218 process. So there's two different things when you talk about drought, and I just want to make sure that we were answering the correct part of that question. So that's the one he's talking about. So John, do you want to talk about if conservation becomes a way of life and it's something we have to put into our structure that we can then recover some of those losses in consumption?
Yes, sir. I think that really there are three things to keep in mind. Number one of the things we can do is be conservative in our demand forecast, the amount of water that we forecast to sell over the planning horizon. And we can, if you will, dial down the forecast of water demand by some minor percentage each year to account for long-term changes in how people use water. And so that's kind of the financial planning way of addressing this issue. The second thing that comes to mind as it relates to your resiliency to deal with drought from a financial perspective is what level of revenue you're getting from fixed charges, from your service charges. And so to the extent that you are getting, and these are numbers I'm just giving you as examples. To the extent that you're getting 20% of your rate revenue from fixed charges, we may feel that that is not adequate to provide you with kind of financial stability in the case of drought curtailment. And we may want to raise your service charges so that the overall contribution they make to your total revenue stream is not 20%, but is now 30 or 35%. Now, there are some ramifications associated with doing that in the sense that as you raise your fixed charges, they have a disproportionate impact on low consumption customers. But that's another way to deal with drought. A third way to deal with drought is the development of drought surcharges. And these surcharges would be tied to your drought response plan. And so that every level of your drought response plan, as the drought gets more and more severe, and your response plan makes you cut back customer demand by ever increasing amounts, surcharges can be developed that will keep you financially whole, even though you have significantly reduced demand. And Brian, I'm not sure whether the development of drought surcharges was in our scope of services or not, but generally, wise utilities are doing all three things. They're not being overly optimistic about their long-term demand forecast. They're increasing the fixed revenue they get from rates, and they're also developing drought surcharges.
Just very quickly, if it's not in the scope, we will definitely add it before, because in reality, looking at the schedule and knowing when we're setting up with the clear group, we want to make sure to have some of these answers available. So we'll be bringing some of your answers to your questions back at the next board meeting, if not the workshop beforehand. So we'll work with Ref Tillis to get those answers and provide a little bit more options, if you will.
I find it a little puzzling that as part of long-term financial plan for a water district, that wouldn't be within the scope. So, I mean,
I agree. I agree. Wilk. That's why
whole pictures.
I'm pretty sure it's in there, but we'll work through that.
And then a question on the fixed charge. Is that something that we could adjust across the 5 years, or is that a one-time adjustment?
It really depends on how we draft the 218 process and how we lay that out. I believe we have the flexibility to move that as long as we disclose it. But typically, once we set it, it's in place. But I think you're right. With where we're going with water as a conservation of life, it's a new era for everyone. So we'll have to look at that as a potential option. So we will definitely look into that.
Okay, because I definitely think the fixed charge needs to be adjusted as well. But if we can ease into that across the 5 years instead of just going from one number to the next, I mean,
No, that's a very good point. We'll look into it and see what our legal what our options are from that perspective and changing that number as we move through. And we'll go from there, because that is something that we do know what our number is going to be from a reduction perspective. And that does change the breakdown of fixed costs to commodity costs. And we'll have to include that in the long range financial plan and then ultimately the Prop 218 process.
And then without opening a whole can of worms, we're pretty confident in the number that we're using for the new administrative building for planning.
From a planning perspective, yes. So as we've talked about this the last couple of years, the number has always been 32 million. I think Arturo looked at where we are with the CPI and knowing that we're still designing some of those aspects, he just conservatively went to 40 million. The one thing that we do a very good job of, specifically Arturo, is that we underestimate revenue and overestimate expenses. That way, the picture that we're providing you always if it does go into a gray area, it's usually to our benefit. And that way we don't run out of cash or some operating revenue. So we do try to put that in there, but obviously when we go out to bid, that's when we'll really know what the number is. And as we talked about, if it's September when the plans are done, then we'll move forward to the bidding process. So we'll know by the end of the year, more than likely, what the total cost and bid cost will be.
But we need to know our rate plan by August.
Correct. So we're going to continue to move forward with the 40 number. But one of the things that we can work on with Alvin is to get up an updated cost to make sure that we have the right number in there.
When we were at Aqua this last month, I had it in my reports, but I just was curious. You said a minute ago, Ref Tellis, sorry, that I think you said 20% of our charges are fixed. Is that what you said?
I said that only as hypothetical. I apologize. I'm not sure exactly what that percentage is.
Do we know, does anyone know what our percentage of that is? The percentage of fixed charges? Sorry,
John, if you know it off the top of your head, great. I think Arturo does. Arturo just walked to the mic.
It is 15%. There's always been a discussion about that there was a law that limited the amount. That was never found to be the case. But at that point, we were limiting it to pretty small just to make sure we were not going up breaking any laws.
That actually makes these numbers make a lot more sense in comparison to the long range financial plan presentation I watched. They had 5 different GMs on that panel, and all of them testified to having 70% of their charges fixed rates. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there for something for us to think about, is that if our fixed rates are lacking in giving us the stability in which they should be providing stability, then we are not charging our fixed rates correctly. So I think that between that and the other costs being updated, it will make a big difference in the percentages we're looking at.
I apologize, but that 70% that you're referencing is is something respectfully that I question. If you had heard them say they had 30 to 35% fixed revenue on the water side, I think that would be more in tune with what I've experienced over my career and what my firm has experienced. If you have a water utility that has 70% fixed revenue, you have really huge monthly or bi-monthly fixed charges. And so that number seems very high, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but
They were big water industries in California that did both sides, wastewater, and they didn't specify. So it could have been overall. I'm not 100% sure, but they were not only mentioning all three tactics that you just helped describe for Vice President Griffith, but they also talked about those costs and fees being an incredibly important part since there's so much scrutiny on the water costs being only what it costs, right? So that they said, all these fixed charges are above and beyond what the cost of those drops of water are, and that they don't change. So why are you allowing them to fluctuate every month was the argument that they were giving, which made sense from a layperson standpoint. So I understand the numbers may not be 100% accurate, but those were what my notes indicated.
What we will do is we will ask Raftellus to provide us with that percentage of where it is today, and then look at the conservation as a way of life. And if our commodity rates drop to meet those goals and objectives that the state of California has set up for us, we will be able to show what does that do and how does that change that percentage. And then that is something that we'll work with our clear group to say, do you feel comfortable with these rates and where it is and the assumptions that we have, knowing that we have a regulatory environment that we have to deal with, and then we'll bring all of that to you. I believe the percentage breakdown between commodity rate and fixed charges, we should be able to bring to you next month. In that way, again, just keeping the dialogue open and continuing this conversation, this transparency process, and making sure that we give you all the information. That is something that was in their scope, and we'll be able to provide you with that.
I think that's all we have for today.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. And it looks like Michael Bush is on the call.
Yes. So back to item 14, please. Thank you.
Go back into.
So for the, oh, sorry, I was going to say for the reasons stated, Director Martin is recusing himself.
Thank you. That is item 14, Joint Community Facilities Agreement between Mission Springs Water District, City of Desert Hot Springs, Skyborn Ventures, Lennar Homes of California, and AGEHC2 California 2 LP. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. We did give a presentation on this on Thursday. There were several questions that were discussed back and forth. I have received additional questions, and I asked that Jim Kozak and Michael Bush, representing the developer in this project and working with the city to set up the CFD, be present to answer any of those questions that the board has shared with me. At this point, I would ask the board to ask, they're available for any questions you may have, and we'll go from there.
Okay. And Director Meyerhoffen, you made a comment. Did you have anything further?
No.
Okay. Director Duff, questions or comments? Sure. Vice President?
No.
And I didn't have any further questions, but I'll just kind of reiterate what I said on Thursday of just our talking, myself and the general manager, how common that these are becoming. And I think if it's not in our community, it's going to be elsewhere, and that this will be a benefit to our community, the city, our water district.
So one of the things that has come up in our doing additional research into this particular item, the city has actually already passed this agreement. So if we make any changes to the agreement, I'm not saying that we can make changes to this agreement. It's just there's some of a process going through, but we're willing to do that. And I think the developer is willing to go through that process if there are any additional information that we'd like added to or modifications to the agreement. I just want to let the board know that, and I didn't realize this when we made the presentation on Thursday, that the city has already passed this document and voted on it. So
It'll be like Congress. We just go back from the House to the Senate. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to compare us to the federal government.
No, I think we're
I've-
a little more stable.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I just wanted to let the board know that, but I also want to reiterate that that comment is not to discourage any comments or any changes to this document. It's our document. We have to feel comfortable signing on to it, and we're willing to go through that process, and so is the city.
May I ask my questions? So I'm a little confused because it was presented to us that we had to agree to this before the city could agree to opening the CFD, that we had to be signed voted members before they could enter into this. So there was a lot of pressure kind of put on us that we had to get all of this digested and be on board before the city closed for their closure this summer. And that was why this was here. So I'm really confused as to why the city was able to vote before we agreed to participate. That doesn't make sense to me. Second, throughout the agreement, there are a lot of words like may elect to advance Mission Springs or may advance Mission Springs. The costs in lieu of payment of their fees. There's also an interchange of the words fees and costs when it is talking about Mission Springs, which are two very different things. It's one thing for us to allow the development agreement, which is already current and in place, to move forward in that they produce the infrastructure, and upon our approval, it's turned over to us, and that's why they're not paying development fees to the district. But there are costs that are incurred by the district for the plan checks, the engineering site inspections, and admin time, staff time. There's also a whole paragraph in here about our responsibilities for CPAs auditing all of our billing that was billed against the advancements that they may elect to give us, which is up to the city to elect to give us or not. And that is very opposite of what the developer stated to me when he said that our development agreement supersedes this CFD agreement. And then when you continue to page, let's see, sorry, I have to find it again. One second, I had it marked a second ago. Page 14, where it talks about the entire agreement, in writing, it says the entire agreement contains the agreement between parties with respect to the matters provided for herein and supersedes all prior agreements and negotiations between parties with respect to the subject matter of this agreement. And nowhere in this document does it specifically state that it will be abiding by the development agreement already in place between Skyborn and Mission Springs, and that not may elect, but must deposit advance funds to Mission Springs for the costs incurred for this development. I have those concerns with the wording and I can't move forward without them changed.
So at this time, I would like either Jim Kozak or Michael Bush to introduce themselves and go through and answer some of the questions the director has shared.
I'll jump in. This is Michael Bush. I appreciate the questions. Let me take a step back from where we were the other day when the item was first presented. I think it may help the context of the questions that have been proposed, and then Mr. Kozak can speak on the behalf of the developer. The fundamentals of the agreement tie back to the community's facilities district, which only funds public infrastructure only. So to one of the questions was about fees and other things. So if the district has impact fees or as a condition of certain capital facilities to be built by Mr. Kozak, CFD revenues from the JCFA are eligible to be used for those facilities. Generally speaking, CFD bond proceeds are a reimbursement for monies already spent. So for example, if Mr. Kozak comes to the district and has to pull permits and pays impact fees he can receive a reimbursement for those impact fees after he pays you first. It is the same thing for capital. It is my understanding that Mr. Kozak's intent is to build capital facilities and seek reimbursement from the CFD for eligible facilities that will eventually be owned by the district. All infrastructure financed through the CFD must be owned by a public agency. So in this case, it would either be the city or the district. And facilities that aren't sufficient to be covered by bond proceeds would be paid for from and by the developer. The specific questions about staff time would not be eligible for CFD funding directly. If they are related to design work for capital facilities, then Mr. Kozak could seek reimbursement. But generally speaking, any staff time associated with review of plans and documents are considered soft costs. Those would typically be paid for by the developer again up front before any bond proceeds or any bonds are issued. Typically, when we see bonds issued, whether it's in Desert Hot Springs or any other community within Coachella Valley, there's typically a substantial amount of vertical development, meaning a lot of these facilities are already in place prior to bonds being issued, and therefore the developers at that point typically seeking reimbursement for any fees related to bringing those facilities to fruition, including impact fees or other permit fees that are eligible and or infrastructure specifically requested by the district or the city as a condition of approval. And I will turn it over to Mr. Kozak to answer any other element of the questions being asked.
Thank you, Michael. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, but I think Director Duff might have a question for Michael before we proceed, if that's okay.
Could you, I understand what you're saying, but could you tell me where in this agreement it gives us those assurances? Because it says that it cancels out the previous developer's agreement. So can you tell me where in the document what you've told us verbally is stated to protect the district?
I'm not sure what agreement you're looking at. I don't have that agreement in front of me, but each CFD requires the developer and the issuing agency to enter into an acquisition agreement. And within that acquisition agreement, it's very specific as to what the CFD proceeds will be used for. So it will talk specifically about any facilities the district has required that the developer fund, and the developer can fund from that list a variety of projects. And typically the CFD doesn't fund all of them, so they pick and choose what they want to fund from the list, provided that they are eligible. And that eligibility list comes from the district. And then secondly, it's typically facilities or fees that would be funded. So to answer your question without seeing the agreement, what ends up getting funded are the facilities specifically requested by the district to the developer.
Okay, thank you.
If I may continue, this is Jim Kozak. Michael Bush is 100% correct in what he explained. The CFD is a reimbursement. Again, since the funds are being generated by bond proceeds, you have to have homeowners already closed and in their homes, paying real property taxes. Typically, you have to have 50 to 80. In some cases, it's 100% of the homes built and sold before they issue the bond proceeds. So to have those facilities built, the infrastructure has to be in place. The fees for review that you're concerned about in terms of district time will have already been paid for up front. This is more of a reimbursement mechanism than taking away any obligation for us to fund anything up front per our current agreements with the water district. So we have agreements in place that do not go away. We're on track to build those that infrastructure in order for the home builder to then construct the homes, provide the water and sewer to serve those homes. And after all that's done and the home is built and the homeowners in the home paying their property taxes, the CFD reimbursement mechanism goes into effect. So there's very little risk to the district in terms of having any agreement changed or not implemented because of this CFD document. So I think a lawyer can maybe better give you a better comfort level about what the wording says, because if you take it in a vacuum, sometimes it can be misinterpreted. And the comfort level here is that this is, uh, reimbursement for facilities that will have already been built and that are part of our water agreements. Just as same thing with the city. We have city controls stormwater and storm drains, and so we have to build those. And because they're regional impacts, we get reimbursed for that through the CFD process. Same for roads. In our case, we have 4 major roads that are considered off-site roads that border our Skyborne project: Pearson Boulevard, Karen Avenue, Future Mission Lakes, and Worsley Road. So all those roads get built and then get reimbursed, from the city side. So there's, virtually no risk to the district in terms of having any financial negative impacts with the CFD process.
Would you like me to
Please,
weigh in?
attorney to ring in on this, please.
Sure, happy to. So a few things have been brought up. If you turn to page 5 of the agreement under section 4, about halfway through that provision, it provides that the purpose of this agreement is to provide a mechanism by which the CFD may issue bonds and levy special taxes to provide a source of funds to finance Mission Springs Water District facilities and acquisition facilities in lieu of payment of Mission Springs Water District fees and provision of acquisition facilities. In the event the bond proceeds, including investment earnings thereon, are not available or sufficient to satisfy the obligation, then the applicable developer shall remain obligated to make an advance for which it will receive no reimbursement, and I'll skip the parenthetical, or pay Mission Springs Water District fees to Mission Springs Water District as a condition of receiving water and sewer service to the property. So it's on them. If the bond proceeds don't produce enough revenue or reimbursement funds to reimburse them for the facilities, and it's on them. As far as the staff costs go, we would most likely, and Brian, you can weigh in on this, we'd probably require the developer to sign a deposit agreement where they put up a deposit that we charge against for any staff time, I'm assuming.
Correct. That's in the existing developer agreement that we've been working with. First, it was Western Pacific Housing, and now, of course, Skyborne Ventures LLC.
Okay. And then in terms of how this program works, it's really laid out, and I understand the concerns that you have. But if you go into section 7, which begins on page 7, and you walk through the next several pages, it lays out how this program works. And you'll see that there are steps that the developer has to go through related to construction of the facilities. They have to go out and they have to issue bids. We have an opportunity to review those bids. We have an opportunity to be present when the bids are opened. It's very clear from that section that they're building the facilities, and then they get reimbursed out of the bond proceeds that presumably the city will, the community facilities district, which is going to be run by the city, will reimburse the developer, but only after the developer notifies the district that those facilities that we'll end up taking ownership of are completed, and we have confirmed that they are completed to our satisfaction. And only when that process occurs will they get reimbursed. If we say that the facilities are not completed to our satisfaction, they don't get reimbursed. So, and then the last issue was really referring to section 11 of the agreement, which is is titled entire agreement, and it's known legally as an integration clause. And the idea behind that agreement or that provision of the agreement is to avoid situations where the parties might claim later, well, we had a verbal agreement that was different or varied from the terms of this agreement. So having an integration clause is a provision in a contract that provides assurance that this is the deal, what's in this document, in the four corners of the document. But it's qualified. It's an integration clause that is qualified because it says that this agreement contains the entire agreement between the parties, but then it ends with respect to the subject matter of this agreement. So there are no other agreements relating to this topic of creating CFDs and providing a mechanism for financing the facilities that are ultimately going to be owned by the district. We do have other agreements with the developer, and Mr. Kozak has just confirmed that those agreements stand and are not impacted adversely by this agreement. And we have improvement agreements with them where they've agreed that they're going to build certain facilities. We're actually going through that right now and identifying, what obligations exist under those agreements. Those improvement agreements have been amended multiple times. We have a development agreement. This doesn't, if you left it the way it is now, it does not negate those agreements. And I think, Mr. Kozak, you would agree that this doesn't impact those agreements, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful, but yeah, I mean, these are used a lot. And I want to also clarify, Mr. Bush, I understand, are you the financial advisor to the city? You're not representing the developer, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So he's the municipal advisor to the city that's putting the deal together. And these are commonly used now. I've worked with Mr. Bush in the past in other jurisdictions, and CFDs are commonly used. One of the benefits of them is that theoretically they lower the entry cost of housing, because if you don't have a CFD, what happens is the developer advances all the funds to build all of these facilities, and then that's built into the purchase price of the home. When you do a CFD, the homeowner pays for those facilities. They pay one way or the other. They either pay up front in the purchase price of the home, which makes it, they won't be able to qualify for as nice of a home, right? Because it's a more expensive home if they're paying for all the district's facilities that are being built. But with a CFD, the cost of the facilities is spread out over a period of years, multiple years. And so they're paying their fair share of the cost of those facilities through their property taxes. And so it's a way to make housing more affordable, frankly. So, and we've used it a lot in other jurisdictions, and and it's worked really well in those.
Not to put my philosophical hat on, I'm trying to just keep it my water hat, because I have different. I understand your perspective on that, and I know in a financial standpoint that's the case. I'm concerned that for our particular community, that may backfire. I hope it doesn't, and I'm very hopeful that this works for the city and that the Skyborn can finally complete its plan. But ultimately, my whole deal is that the water code is very, very specific, and our ratepayers cannot fund or front someone else. And I understand that he is acknowledging that the agreement is not superseding our developer agreement. He's acknowledging he's going to do all of those things verbally, but this wasn't his contract either. And I'm just concerned that the litigation that could come from this is something that we need to consider that we're taking on by agreeing.
So just to kind of reassure you, first of all, the city is actually the main player in this. If you read it, this is a financing mechanism. This is not the only one that has development in the city that has a Mello-Roos tax. When you were looking for your house, they may have said no Mello-Roos. That's what this is. And that is where they use the taxes to fund bonds. So it's just a financing mechanism, whereas right now, a lot of the times they give us all the money up front. That reduces how much more they can construct. So the construction is slower. So it's not to our detriment, but because it has to be used for public facilities, we have to be part of it. So it's nothing that's going to take away from our rights or take away from the ratepayers, or they're not going to pay what they should. It's just they get to go ahead and do this and get reimbursed. And that way they're not having to put a ton of capital on a deposit, which is what they do now. They give us the money, we put it on deposit, then they build the facilities. And then when it's done, that goes for that. So it's just kind of in reverse.
To do that.
Yes, they may not have to do the deposit for the facilities itself, but for the fees and everything else,
The cost.
yes. But allows them to get it reimbursed so that they don't have to put all that up.
And that was my other issue with this
Contract was that it says costs and fees as if they're the same thing, and they're not the same thing. And it's saying we give up all of it.
You're confusing the two agreements. You're looking at a different.
I'm reading H.
I'm
It says,
sorry.
may elect to advance Mission Springs Water District facilities costs in lieu of payment of fees. May elect. And it says that throughout, fees versus costs, and that we don't get any fees, and that we will be refunding any fees we advance or collect to the developer. But I said my piece. Thank you.
So on that issue, one of the things that a agency can do is they can charge developer impact fees to finance the cost of building facilities that are necessitated by the development, like a city charges road and bridge fees, right? And the idea there is the developer pays this fee to offset the costs that are going to be needed to expand or add additional roadways and bridges. But if the developer builds the bridge in lieu of paying the fee, then the idea behind a CFD is they built the bridge and an equivalent value of roads and bridges that they built compared to what they would have paid in fees. And so they just get reimbursed for the cost to build the road or bridge that they built. And there's nothing in the agreement that would obligate the district to go out and start building facilities for this private development. And in fact, it's clear that we're not going to provide them water or sewer service unless they meet their obligations. And if the CFD bond funds are insufficient, they have to come out of pocket to cover things, not the district.
I guess quick question to summarize all this. Staff and legal counsel is confident in the verbiage as is?
We're comfortable with it. I understand Director Duff's concerns, and I think they're good questions. Particularly given that I don't know if Mission Springs has been involved with one of these in the past. I'm not aware that we haven't. So it's probably new. We're new to this board. And I understand the concern, but I'm comfortable with the agreement. I understand the concern with the integration clause, but I'm comfortable with the way it's worded because it only relates to the issues addressed in this agreement. I don't believe that it negates the prior agreements that we've entered into with them.
I believe we have entered in at least one CFD. Director of Finance.
Thank you, General Manager Macy. We are currently have one contract for a CFD, Century Village AD 13, which is basically the district is the intermediary where we get a lot of the information. There is ongoing costs every year for staff to follow up with customers when they have questions about the assessments on their properties, and we do through the bond bill the developer. And we get that money back for the district. And we do, in this instance, collect the property taxes, turn around and send it to the bank. But it is basically the agreement took care of everything other than we get those reports. We are presenting them, looking at them once a year to make sure they do meet audit requirements, send them to the agencies that are required to review those. But we do have that ongoing right now. I believe it falls off in about 10 years. But it is very safe to the district. There's no, I haven't seen any issues with that process, but it is something that we can provide additional information for the board if so required. This was 2012? No, 2004. Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Anything further from the board? Jim or Michael, did you have anything further?
The only thing I would mention is that this process, can you hear me okay? It's hard for me to
Yes.
tell if I'm unmuted. Is not going to affect the district ratepayers in terms of their water bill. So I think that was one of the concerns one of the directors mentioned. And again, it's a financing mechanism, and nothing replaces our existing agreements with the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to add on to that comment from Mr. Kozak. I'm sure Mr. Pinkney knows all too well that the other ratepayers within the district are protected under AB 1600. So the fees, impact fees paid for, if they are included with the CFD, will be those allocated under your current AB 1600 impact fee program. And the capital will be specific to the project. The only individuals assessed for this infrastructure will be the new property owners, no one else outside of the district.
Pardon, unless litigation ensues, correct?
What is the particular type of litigation that?
Any, because we're listed. So any litigation involving any of the development or any of this agreement, we would be roped into, correct? Future or present. Because we indemnify them and they indemnify us. So I think we're all listed equally and we cover our own legal fees.
Yeah, anybody can sue anybody for anything, but there is a provision at section 14 of the agreement that, let me just look at this real quick. Yeah, so the prevailing party, if someone were to file some kind of frivolous lawsuit, the prevailing party in that litigation would be entitled to collect its attorney fees from the other parties. Let me just look at that for 1 second. Hold on. Yeah, the party in whose favor judgment shall be entered shall be entitled to recover from the losing party or parties all costs and expense of suit, including reasonable attorney fees. It then goes on to say the provisions of this section 14 shall apply separately to each developer, but under no circumstance shall a developer's obligation hereunder be considered joint and several with the other developer. So they're separately liable, but if one of them were to file a frivolous lawsuit, or if the district did or the city did, whoever loses, they're going to have to pay the other party's attorney, the prevailing party's attorney fees.
Page 14B at the top.
Another important thing to bring up is that the people that are buying the homes receive a disclosure package that outlines all this information, and they before they can close their loan on the house, they have to agree to the terms and conditions of this process. So there's full disclosure, it's totally transparent, and it's got legal documentation that has been tried and tested very effectively to keep litigation from happening.
Anything further from the board? With that, I will make a motion to approve the joint community facilities agreement, item 14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
No, not as written.
Director so he's abstaining, sorry. Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
And President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Do we want to take a 5-minute break before we proceed with the rest? We still have consent agenda, director reports, closed session. All right, we'll recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we'll reconvene from our break and move on with the consent agenda. The consent agenda this month consists of just 2 items. Item 24, the approval of minutes, and item 25, the register of demands. Did we have Anyone wanting to pull those to discuss? No. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 26, Director's Report. Last month we started that side. Would you like to go first, Director Duff?
Okay. All right, so on May 1st, I attended the CSDA Professional Development Committee Zoom meeting, and we were all given an instructional video on how to use their software for the review of all of the fall CSDA awards contestants. And then on the 13th through the 15th, I attended the Aqua 25 Spring Conference. On Tuesday, I attended the Groundwater Committee meeting where they announced that we currently have 86 approved basins under Sigma. 7 basins are inadequate. The approvals given, they reminded us, are not permanent, and that many come with many corrective action notes, and that even on the approval notices, they can rescind at any time if any information changes. DWR was there, and they also talked about moving from paper review to the physical inspection process of Sigma. So they're starting to make site visits. And he was letting everyone know to prepare for more notes and more reports from their site visits that could cause changes and could potentially remove approved basins if they don't present what they wrote and represented on paper. I also attended the Federal Affairs Committee meeting where they reviewed bills AB 794, SB 350, AB 601, and AB 929. Aqua opposed all of those as written. Let's see, Bureau of Reclamation did provide some federal funding from the current administration for water storage, but they were very preliminary in that announcement. They didn't have any specific details as to how much or exactly where it was going to go. The keynote speaker was the president of the American Water Association, I believe, Water Quality, not reading my own. National Water Supply Alliance. Thank you. And I don't want to go off too much about what she had to say. I thought it was very cute that she ended her statement with reminding us all that anytime we hear anyone talking politics, we're all to say and water. So I'm just going to reiterate that. Make sure to keep water in the forefront of all of these conversations because we tend to get ignored. Let's see. I also attended the finance program Future of Water Rates panel discussing balancing the books and meeting all the legal requirements as being number one, but how difficult it is to at the same time balance recruitment, retention of qualified staff, as well as making sense to the public, our rates, when a lot of times they don't pay very close attention to everything we put in. We're nerds and we're in it, so we're paying attention to all the things that go into serving our community. They just turn the faucet on, and if it turns on, it's working, and they don't put much more thought into that, which affects the water rate whole discussion. And so that was an interesting panel reminding us of important things to make our customers aware of. Also attended a finance program on long-range financial planning. I had mentioned that earlier. I won't go too much more into that. I was pleased to see that a lot of what Ref Tellis was doing, is right there with what the professionals were saying. Don't look at 5 years, look at 10 or more. And to include debt in your plan as being really important. Don't negate that as being part of your toolbox. Let's see. Also attended a Region 9 meeting, reviewed they all reviewed the committee reports from the Tuesday meetings, discussed scheduling their next meeting and being in charge of the next Region 9 event and the upcoming discussion of that. Attended state, local, federal efforts to enhance water supply. This was a panel discussion that included Mr. Nichols from the Bureau of Reclamation for the state of California, as well as Ms. Diadamo from the State Water Resources Control Board. And they started it off it was interesting, the focus of farmland, but it was talking about how the reality is we are looking in the next 24 months at another 500 to 1 million acres of farmland that will need to follow just to meet water needs of the urban communities. So obviously a lot more discussion was had in that meeting, but I'm just giving you a couple of the key highlights there. They had a lot of discussion between the state and federal representation not being on the same page, and there was a lot of discussion back and forth. And then I was very impressed by this gentleman from Frazant, or I think it's Frazant in Nevada. He said we should be using this to our advantage. That if the governor of California wants to show that he does everything the best, and our current administration wants to show that he does everything the best, we should be giving them both the tools to do the best for us and to try and do our best to play both sides in that respect. Also on the 20th, I attended the DWA board meeting as a substitute for Vice President Griffith. Director Bowman was the chair of this meeting. They received their engineer's report on the West Whitewater and Mission Creek subbasins. They reviewed that their upcoming rack rate will be, as of this next fiscal year for 25-26, $235 an acre foot, which represents another third year of $20 an acre foot increases. They also reported that again, for another year, CVWD has made 0 changes to their rack rates, remaining $165 an acre foot and $135 an acre foot respectively. The public hearing on these rate increases are being held tomorrow at Desert Water Agency in Palm Springs at 8 a.m. by Zoom or in person if any ratepayers want to go and find out more or oppose or approve of this increase. They also had reports that I just want to take a moment and correct. But before I do that, they also discussed, sorry, my notes are a mess. They also discussed their paving project being completed and that they still have 37 mainline leaks, 7 on Farrell alone, and that Indian Canyon still has an asbestos pipe, and that they are experiencing a little of the asbestos in the system, and they're starting to look at that repair. One of the directors made comment on a staff member of CVWD reporting that they had entered into an agreement with Mission Springs Water District. This was not accurate information. Mission Springs Water District does not currently have any agreements or MOUs with CVWD to take their Chrome 6 treatment wastewater. Instead, what was provided to CVWD was our industrial waste program requirements and policies. There's been no other discussion about that since, and we are always here to work with our community. Aside from that, I attended the Women's Club Luncheon on the 6th. I had a nice opportunity to meet all the women who are so passionate about all of our kids. It was very interesting. One of them was very passionate about the cap and gown program that they did not feel did as well this year as they wanted it to. And they were very, very vocal to the group about needing to do better this coming year at providing our caps and gowns for our kids that can't afford them. And then on the 8th, I also attended the CVAG Energy meeting, and they discussed the letter that was sent to the Southern California Air Quality Control Board in opposition of the gas proposals. And they also had a presentation on the brand new JPIA electrical company that has been formed for the southeast part of the valley. And that concludes my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President?
I attended on May 6th, a DWA board meeting, which was extremely short. It was all consent. And I was actually at an investors conference, so it was nice to not have a very long meeting. I did do Aqua this year in Monterey. We got to tour, if I look at my picture, I know where it is. Marion Champion knows this. We toured a wastewater facility that does recycled water for Pebble Beach. Yes, in
Carmel,
I forget the name of it. I'm not really good at names anymore. Aqua, the best part of it to me was the keynote speaker. It was Catherine Zich, president of the National Water Supply Alliance, and surprisingly talked about drought issues in Georgia, which I was not aware of. Most of us think of the East has plenty of water, but apparently they have droughts also. Also did the CSDA Legislative Conference with President Sewell, and I forget who the speaker was in the morning. It was a state rep from LA, I think, or a 70 person from LA who gave us 3 tips, and I don't remember the first 2 or the three. What's it, the 3 requirements in politics. I remember the third because that's an easy one, but not the first 2. So maybe he will. Got to meet with Senator Ochoa Bowe and also again with Greg Wallace. A lot more people attended this year. Last year, we didn't have we had meetings in usually groups of 4 or 5, and I think in our one meeting we had something like 20 some people in both of the meetings, so it was pretty well attended. And yeah, and that was pretty much my month. So that's it.
So I was looking for the 3 points. I remember 2 of them.
The first 2?
No, I remember the second one, I think, and the third one.
Okay.
Math was one, but anyhow.
Math, yeah.
I have a few to report on. May 13th through the 15th, attended Aqua Spring Conference. Was with Vice President when we toured the wastewater plant. I thought it was a great tour, but it was, I think, pretty eye-opening that recycled water is expensive and a big undertaking. And they're, I think, somewhat lucky to have a good customer for that recycled water. That if we get to that point one day, I think we're going to hopefully have to get some grant funding to make that a possibility for us. Then the Aqua Conference itself, I went to 2 different breakouts regarding rate setting. We kind of dove into that earlier, but some things that stuck out to me was to make sure that we have a policy on our reserves, so then we can include that as our reserves as part of the cost of service. They also talked quite a bit about budget-based rates. I'm optimistic about them, but there's a lot that goes into it, and they require a lot of work to kind of show the true cost of service. Another main emphasis was to have legal counsel to be involved every step of the way through the rate setting process. There's a lot more to it, I think, now than there was previously, and it seems like Marion and everyone has a good timeline and making sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. Both keynote speakers are very good. Also mentioned already, but Catherine Zich, National Water Supply Alliance, she made some comments on AI and the amount of water that AI is using, needing cooling for the computers doing all the processing. And she claimed that 100-word email from using AI to create a 100-word email is going to use about 1 bottle of water just to do the cooling for the computer. I don't know if that checks out, but it seems like a lot of water. Justin Wren was also the other keynote speaker. He's a retired MMA fighter that now helps undeveloped tribes in Africa drill water wells. Is pretty inspirational, and his big point was just making small changes can have a huge impact in your communities. So I think we're doing our part here. May 20th, attended CSDA Legislative Conference with Vice President Griffith. This was the first CSDA Legislative Conference that I attended, but I did like the format of being able to not just get information, but we were able to go out to our representatives and kind of lobby for different bills and things that we needed. I was a little disappointed that our group was so large. I think for Ochoa Bogue, we had about 30 people in the room. But a highlight of that was we stuck out, and she mentioned us by name and said we have award-winning water. So many of the other people in the room were just barely meeting her, and we already have a good relationship. Kind of along the same lines with Greg Wallace. Wasn't as big a group, but he was very familiar with MSWD. So I think it's great that we're staying relevant and on top of our relationships with our representatives. Then May 27th, CVWD meeting. A few things stuck out in the meeting. One, they moved forward at eminent domain for an easement to bring a source of water to a wetlands mitigation site that they have. They also went over AB 2561, which was the public hearing on vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts. CVWD has 570 budgeted positions. They filled 70 vacancies last year, with 58 of those being new hires. And their vacancy rate at the end of 2024 was 3.6%. They also approved an $18 million contract to do some repair work at their water reclamation plant number 10. And that's the main things that really stuck out to me. And that's all I have for my report. And Director Meyerhoffen, I didn't see you on the list. Did you have anything to report on?
I would just like to say I had some personal problems last month, and it was my choice not to go to a couple of the meetings, but I did make my required meetings. And next month I'll have more of a report.
Great. Director Martin?
Yeah, on the 1st of May, at Desert Valley Builders Association legislative meeting, there was a briefing by Coachella Valley elected personnel and representatives on legislative and development, building and development in the Coachella Valley. And included was City Councilman Glenn Miller, who was speaking on behalf of Ken Calvert, Congressman Ken Calvert, and City Councilwoman Deborah McCrary, along with Desert Water Agency Representative Victoria Lort. It's always an informative meeting on what's going on with all the different jurisdictions within the Coachella Valley. I attended the Aqua Conference as well on the 13th through the 15th. There were a wide range of sessions over the 3 days. One of the sessions I thought was kind of interesting, the importance of farming alfalfa, the food supplies, and the environment. I was born on a farm, and I've heard about farming for a long time, and I know that alfalfa is farmed, but I never understood or never was told the importance of it. So that was very informative. And I'd also attended a number of legal affairs, both federal and state. There were a total of about 6 sessions involving legal affairs. One of the items that was discussed I found interesting was the litigation concerning the Pacific Palisades fire and inadequate water reserves to address that. They pointed out the importance of, and I hope that we're doing this, on any of the land that Mission Springs Water District controls or owns, that we do everything in our power to mitigate or reduce fire risk. And they had stressed the importance of videotaping any efforts with videotaping or still photography and documenting the efforts so that we can, in any future litigation, we have some evidence to show our efforts. Let's see, on the 6th city council meeting, it was kind of interesting because the interim city manager, Doria Wilms, was on the agenda to be considered for permanent appointment to the position of general manager. And I, along with a number of other people, were very concerned when she wasn't at the council meeting. I thought, well, that can't be a good sign. And it turns out she was at a conference up in, so I thought we dodged a bullet there. But on the 20th, she was there and she was appointed as a permanent city manager. And I was very impressed with her acceptance speech. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house, and she was really gave an emotional, very excellent acceptance speech. On the 20th, Desert Valley Builders Association Networking Night at Palm Springs Surf Club, there was a large turnout, both elected officials and local leaders in the Coachella Valley. Memorial Day celebration at Veterans Park was the largest turnout they've had in recent years, along with a vintage aircraft flyover. And it was a very excellent And it wasn't too hot. It was early enough in the morning where the heat wasn't an issue. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 27, General Manager's Report. I believe we have both Finance and Public Affairs today.
We do have both oral reports ready to go. However, knowing where we are with the timing, we can postpone those. All the information is presented in both the general manager's report, both finance and the PR report. So if we want to just continue to move forward, if there are any questions, we can ask staff to come up and give those answers if you'd like. It's completely up to the board's direction. I just know it's getting a little bit later than we typically are around for these.
Okay.
meetings.
Everyone okay with
Postponing it?
doing what's in the packet instead of a verbal report?
Yeah. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Item 28, District Council comments.
Yes, we do have closed sessions today. Item 30 is conference with legal counsel, potential initiation of litigation, one potential case. Item 31 is conference with legal counsel pending litigation, and that's Fournier versus Mission Springs Water District.
Thank you. Item 29, Director comments and requests for future agenda items. Director Martin?
No, nothing to add to.
Director Myhoff?
Yes. As you know, I went by the ancillary treatment plant. In the beginning of the building there, I was asked about the landscape. And I finally kind of backed away from it because I wasn't really sure what was happening. During the grand opening, I made the suggestion that we don't put any landscaping in because it's all going to die. And Macy, you can thank our contractor for proving it wrong. I went by there Friday, and they created heat islands. What part of rocks and plastic around the base of a plant? It doesn't lower the temperature of the ground or the plant, so therefore you have to use nothing. I don't know why people can't grasp that concept. The irrigation wasn't correct. The palm trees needed water. It looks as if though all the ocotillo plants were already dead. One was laying down on the ground. But here's the thing that's most concerning to me, which probably leads us to why the latter of what I've said happened. The first thing any contractor, general contractor, landscaper, anybody with a specialty license does is at the end of the day or at the end of the job, they clean their mess up. Across the street was the leftover rocks piled up in a pile. So they didn't take them away, they just took it and piled it across the street. Which isn't the image that I think the water district is. If we're going to have tours for our customers, people in high school, grammar school coming through there, then we need to set the example in all of our properties of what proper irrigation is. It's just totally unacceptable to me. Now, I would like in future, agenda, how did you pronounce that?
Requests for future agenda items.
Yes. That we entertain the thought of all of our contractors and at least one of our employees, whoever general manager Macy picks, attend the training for irrigation at the Coachella Valley Water District and get that certification from them. That way we know it's being done correctly. It's unacceptable that you're a water district. You have to set the example. When we talk about saving water for the future, proper irrigation will save approximately 38% of your water out the yard. In the proper irrigation. Right now, I'm involved with a little experiment of Wi-Fi controllers, and I'm even looking into somewhere where we can get Wi-Fi moisture meters to see that, so when people go away on snowbirds day, for an example, that they'll be able to sit where they're at and see what the moisture is in the ground around their plants, and then be able to turn on the irrigation all by Wi-Fi. So we really need to look at this, and I hope we can get this on the agenda to make sure that everybody has the proper training. Yeah, to make each other.
Thank you. Director Duff?
I just had one, two actually. One, I didn't make the comment earlier during the CFD, and I just wanted to make sure that the public and the ratepayers know I am for development in our city. I just have a very strong feeling of responsibility to be able to, with my conscience, sign off on documents. And if I don't feel comfortable with them, I have to go by my conscience. So that was the main reason for my no, is the way that the contract was written for us. But I am pro-development. That was one. Two, with summer coming, we are seeing a lot more pools and time in the pool. Please, everyone, watch your children near the water and near the pools. Make sure you have your safety equipment. Make sure you have all of those house alarms turned on. Please be pool safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President?
Keep your luggage safe around General Manager Mason.
And Director Meyerhoffen as one additional?
Yes,
You're
the most
like-
important one. It's on, isn't it? No, I mean, I said all that and nobody heard me.
No, you have.
Anyhow, General Manager Macy, I'd like to commend you and your staff that takes care of the financing and accounting. To my surprise, I received a message that I forgot to cash a check. It was a travel reimbursement check, so it wasn't that much, but it dated back a year. And not only that, but I was also told by Mr. Sayos that they went through and even found customers who had reimbursement checks that didn't cash them. And I think that's excellent work by your finance department and accounting. And I think that says a lot about the district's customer service and community, wanting to give money back to our customers. I just really think that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have
Oh, go ahead.
additional comment. I had mentioned during my report about the need to document our efforts in fire prevention in the properties owned by the water district. I'd like that to be a future agenda item, what we have and what steps are taken to reduce the risk, and any steps that we are taking, are we documenting it properly? We would like that on the future agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just have one, and that's a thank you to our Vice President Griffith. I will be away for next month's meetings, and you get to have my job. Thank you. And with that, we will head into closed session.
We do that here.
We just reconvened from closed session. Counselor, can you report out?
Yes, the board met in closed session, item 30, conference with legal counsel, potential initiation of litigation. There was no reportable action on item 31, conference with legal counsel pending litigation. And that is Fournier versus Mission Springs Water District. There's no reportable action taken on that item.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.